Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Laura's Natural Podcast. Today, we are looking at the world through the eyes of two incredible women, two friends, two colleagues, and two advocates. So, Samantha Mark, hi, Samantha,
Hi.
is a certified tarot advisor and intuitive reader incorporating numerology, astrology, human design, crystals, and law of attraction teachings into her readings. Samantha is also a diversity, equality, and inclusion advocate. Thank you for being here, Samantha. And at the end, we'll talk a little bit more about what you guys do separately and what you guys do together, and anything that is coming up in the sense of gifts that you may want to share, maybe a little meditation, maybe a little tarot pull. We'll do that at the end. Sharmaine Denise is a spiritual life coach, meditation teacher, and soon to be certified Moonology. You have to let us know a little bit more about what that is. Her mission is to empower and guide her clients through the roadblocks that prevent them from living in alignment and help them in their own unique gift, allowing here comes this word again, allowing their light to shine. We were just talking about light. So light is obviously the theme of the day. So welcome so much for being here, ladies. I'm so excited for you both to be here. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So both Sharmaine and Samantha are both advocates of the LGBTQ community plus community. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, in addition to obviously what they do and there's gifts that they give as spiritual advisors and such. But that's where we are going to start. I invited both of them here. I saw Samantha's coming out story on coming out day. I didn't even realize there was a coming out day until I saw all these amazing videos show up on social media. And I saw Samantha's and I was like, you know what? I would love to have a conversation with with Samantha. And then we invited Sharmaine, of course, because I think we take it for granted. I even said this to my family yesterday. I had them over. I'm like, I really take for granted how life is easy for a straight white woman. And I'm not saying this from a place of anything except for the fact that, we just don't know what others face in their day-to-day things that we take for granted. So my intention of this episode is to allow people to look at the world through the eyes of both of you incredible women, and just give us a little peek into what that story how that story unfolded you. And of course, like anything, our hope is to always, even if just one person hears this and it gives them the courage to be who they are and to start living their truth, whatever that means for them, even if it's not necessarily having to do anything with their sexuality, but in any respect, then I think we've done our job here today, ladies. What do you think?
Oh, yes.
Samantha, I'm gonna start with you. I'm just gonna go through a little bit in terms of what you said of your coming out story, and then allow you the space to expand on that. And then Sharmaine, chime in, obviously, of course, what was similar about yours, what may have been a little bit different. So, and incredible again, like just listening this as somebody who has never experienced this, it's quite amazing. So Samantha, you constantly assess safety to a high degree. So I want to actually throw that out to the both of you. You mean in terms of obviously violence, right? So is that what you meant? I don't want to misinterpret words.
Yes, but I feel like that's only one layer of it. I think it's just safety, even in a safe physical environment, it's safety between each individual person. So even if you have 5 people in front of you, you're assessing your safety with every single person individually in the context of where you are, in the context of the conversation. And it's just an ongoing thing almost in every aspect of the word safety.
So you feel that you always have to be like hyper focused in terms of what you're saying?
In a way, yes, because I feel like at the foundation of that is just this inherent fear that you might get rejected by certain people, or maybe you lose that relationship. There's a 50% chance they may not, agree with my lifestyle. So, yeah, in a way, it is kind of a hyper focus.
Sharmaine, do you feel the same? You're nodding, so.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So not only just that physical safety, but am I safe? Mentally, emotionally, just whatever I share with you, is it going to be protected? Am I going to be accepted? Am I going to be, allowed to show up as my full self here in this space with people? So there's always that kind of conscious awareness of wherever I am, whatever I'm getting myself into. It's like, okay, let me see how I can fully be here in this space with other folks.
So would you guys say you have almost like a mental checklist that you go through before you start to be a little bit more vulnerable with people or maybe open up?
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like my story is a little bit different in the way that I identified as a straight cis woman for like the first 20 years of my
Yes.
life. I was in my longest relationship was 10 years with a cis male. And so I kind of know very well the lives between both. And so it's interesting experiencing both ends of it. But sorry, when I said that, I forgot your initial question.
No, that was going to be the next point anyway. So you straight identified. So I'm assuming that means that you identified yourself as somebody that was straight for over 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sharmaine, is that something that was part of your journey as well?
I didn't come out until my early 20s as well. And I think it's just easy because the default has been like heterosexuality, right? So for me growing up, it wasn't really like an option to be something different, but we'll get to that, I'm sure. But yeah, I didn't, for a long time, I kind of just hid behind this like mask of the assumption that I'm straight. So yeah.
And then, so Sam, when did you, and then we'll ask Sharmaine the same question. If you're feeling called to share, of course, was there a moment that you're like, no, it's time to unmask? And I love that. That was actually a word that was in my head before Sharmaine even said it, because there's like the autism community talks about masking, right? Their disabilities and such. And I think we all mask, even though we may not really use that terminology. So was there a moment, can you guys remember an actual moment where you're like literally maybe not, taking off the mask, but you're like, no, you know what?
I feel like there were multiple moments in different ways. So I guess it's a good time to also distinguish between identities in that some people know their whole lives from a very young age that they, maybe identify as lesbian or maybe they identified as transgender. And so they kind of just lived that life under a different guise. But for myself specifically, I identified as a straight cis female for those 20 years. And then I came to a few years when I first met people in the LGBT community was in college. And that's when I started to kind of explore a little bit more because I always felt different. And you don't know what you don't know until you compare it with other people's experiences. So like I went through a phase where I identified as bisexual for maybe 2 or 3 years. But when I say that, I always like to give a little note, like bisexuality is not like a gateway to becoming a lesbian or becoming gay. I identified as that, and that was my identity. And it just shifted over time. And now I consider myself pansexual, where I'm open to almost anyone. I mean, I have my own personal standards of who I like and don't like, but in general, it doesn't matter how someone identifies or how they present themselves. I'm open to that. So your question is a little bit, there's a lot of points
There's a lot of layers. I'm feeling called to give Schitt's Creek a little shout out here. Yes, it's one of my favorite shows, but I think they really allowed that term pansexual to be a little bit more mainstream. So we'll just give a little credit to some amazing Canadian actors.
But I did have that like light bulb moment, and I remember it very specifically where I just had this knowing, very strong knowing that I was not meant to be with a straight cis male in my lifetime. Like it was like literally that chapter in my life ended. I got this nudge of knowing, and then I was like, this is my path. The LGBT community is my path. And so I did have that.
Sharmaine, would you say that was somewhat similar?
So there's some parallels there with Sam's story, but for me, I would say I always knew that I was identified as a lesbian, probably from as early as age 7. But I grew up in a very kind of Christian household, so kind of being raised in, I mean, we weren't ultra religious, but just being surrounded by Christian teachings and Christian dogma, it it was very hard. So I kind of hid behind that for such a long time, to where a lot of my upbringing and adolescence was just kind of tumultuous on the inside, because I was kind of battling these emotions that I kind of inherently knew were not wrong, but I was being taught that it was wrong. So I was kind of like fighting myself for a lot of my adolescence and early years. And I think that's part of the reason why I waited so long till I came out. But the funny thing is like, God, universe, source is funny to me, because even though I knew I had this kind of inner knowing that this is who I am, this is the path that I'm meant to really walk in this lifetime, the universe kind of orchestrated itself like around me. Like, I ended up going to school in San Francisco, not really knowing like that was like the queer mecca. You know, I was kind of naive in that, and like still didn't really know. And like, I always had a natural curiosity to kind of hang out with like eccentric people. So that kind of helped me as far as having very open-ended conversations, kind of assessing that safety risk of like, how can I really be in this space with you? Like, can I share like these deep, dark secrets that I have? Like, I've been walking this path on my own, but I met some wonderful, wonderful people in college, 2 women in particular that really helped me in my own coming out journey, people that I call my sisters now. And it wasn't necessarily like one moment, it was like a collection of things across like my early years that helped me to just own who I am. And the final culmination of that was I attended a leadership retreat actually in college. This was my senior year in college, and it was a leadership retreat. And we were doing this exercise where we were all in a circle, and the moderator was saying various statements, and if it applied to you, stepped in the circle. And so they talk about cultural identity and race and different beliefs. And when it came to identifying as LGBT, like literally I felt something push me, and I just like jumped in the circle. Wow. I was like, oh my God. I was like, what did I just do? And I just remember kind of having an initial freak out, like, okay, now like everyone sees me, everyone knows, but like, it wasn't a thing. You know, it wasn't a thing. I was held just not only just energetically, spiritually, like I was held in a space of like, you are loved, we see you, and it's going to be okay. And so I left that leadership retreat like feeling fully empowered. And I remember I called my mother, and I was like, hey, Mom, I have something to tell you.
That's
amazing.
Like,
oh my God, what? Like, yeah. And similar to Sam in this story, at first I came out as bisexual because I kind of didn't, just trying to figure it all out, you know? And I'm like, I think this is it. I'm not quite sure. And it wasn't until a couple of years later, as I was like really trying to like find my way in life, that I identified as lesbian. So, and similar to Sam, you know, bisexuality is a very valid sexual identity, and it's not a gateway to anything. But yeah, that was kind of my journey, and it's been an interesting revelation.
It sounds it, but I so many amazing moments it sounds as well. Do you guys, so anybody that's going to listen to this and they maybe at that point in their journey where they know they just haven't maybe told their family, and I know Samantha had made a mention how more professionally has been, not maybe more professionally, but has been as more personal with people, even professionally, in terms of, you know, not being comfortable in sharing that. So we'll talk about that. But for the person that's going to listen to this, that, you know they just haven't maybe told their workplace or told their family or started to identify themselves as anything other than straight, what would be a piece of advice for them? Is there anything intuitively that you're being called to share with them?
Sharmaine, do you want to go first?
Sure. So one, there's no rule book, there's no guidebook. You don't have to come out before you are ready to come out. That's the first thing I want to say. And I fully recognize, you know, even in the 21st century, even in 2022, it is scary. It can be dangerous for people to come out. And at the end of the day, if you feel safe enough, if you feel, if you have those support systems, if you are feeling called to come out and live your truth, by all means, but also recognize that it is not a requirement and that you can fully live your whole self and have your safety intact. And I think that is, safety is important, and also just honoring that within yourself and however it is in your own environment. So that's one thing. Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely, 100%. If I were to add to that, it would really be seeking out community. And that doesn't even have to be real life people that you can talk to, but that is where representation in media, for example, is really important. That's where, I mean, even now, YouTube has so many resources, Instagram has so many people you can reach out to, and they put themselves out there. Like even Sharmaine and I, for example, right? If you found us on our social medias and reached out, we would be more than happy to talk about whatever it is you're going through with you. But I think community is a lot easier to find than it used to be. Back then, it really was like TV shows, and you were like grabbing for any kind of content to help make sense of your life. But I feel like in the LGBT community, chosen family is a really common thing talked about, where, you know, blood is blood, but the people you surround yourself with, they're going to be your support system if anything does go south, when you're coming out in different situations, different friend groups. Friends could potentially leave your life, or they could be very supportive. Same with family, same with the professional workplace. And so having that core group, or, you know, just try reaching out to people who have already put themselves out there as a resource. There's plenty of websites too that you can go to. I know Trevor Project is one of the most well-known, probably. There's a lot of resources out there for support. So I feel like it's really, yes, assessing your safety, assessing the resources and the support around you, and then just coming out to yourself first, and then in your own time externally, however that feels right for you.
And we'll get some of the links that you have all suggested and make sure that they're in the show notes, so people have access to both here in Canada and the US. So is there ever a time, and we're going to talk to Sharmaine's point in the sense of how this has really shaped your spirituality, but you're both in the spiritual world, you're both intuitives. So do you think that's helped you in the sense, and Sharmaine, I want you to expand on this as well, in terms of what you meant in terms of how this experience has really shaped your spirituality. But a question to just play off that is, do you find that that has helped you be more intuitive in the sense of like, you know what, I don't feel safe, or I'm not feeling called to share my sexuality with this person or in this situation? Do you think that that has really allowed you to feel more safe in terms of being able to just feel different energy and be like, oh, I don't know if they're ready for this yet, type of thing?
Yeah, for me, for sure. Like I had mentioned earlier, I was raised in a Christian home, so I had a kind of a foundation there in terms of God, and it gave me a framework for kind of establishing my own morality and my own moral compass, which I am very, very grateful for. I don't identify myself as very religious now, but growing up, that helped shape me. And one of the things that I kind of learned early on was being able to pick up on people's energies, even when I was younger and not really understanding, like, what the hell is going on? Like, I was always kind of very sensitive and didn't really quite understand what any of it was, or I always just kind of felt just overwhelmed by everything around me, and I didn't really know how to regulate that. So one of the things that I kind of grasped to was like prayer and meditation very early on. I didn't really develop more of a spiritual practice until I was a bit older and kind of like lived a bit of life and needed a little bit more grounding and structure for myself. But in my own private way, I had this really deep connection to God, to connection to the universe, and connection to source, because that's where I drew a lot of my strength around dealing with things that were being taught around me, and how just essentially how I just didn't agree with a lot of things that was being shared to me, and just like knowing like, well, that doesn't quite feel right, and just knowing like it doesn't feel right in my bones, but I'm hearing what you're saying, but you're not really walking your talk here. And so I always kind of pushed back and asked a lot of questions, and you know, kind of got the finger waved at me. And so, but it just helped me kind of delve deeper into my own connection with God and with source and whatever you want to call it. So what was your question? I feel like I just
that was my initial question.
Okay.
That was my initial question. So we'll all direct that same question to Sam, because you now are in the spiritual realm and niche as well, and you're a sermon leader in this incredible niche that we all share. Do you think that your journey has brought you there? Do you think that was a byproduct of it at all?
I feel like it was actually me coming into spirituality that really helped me validate my whole experience before that. I never quite understood why I always felt like the odd one. I'm also Aquarius sun.
Me too.
And an Aries moon. So, I mean, it's just part of life, right? And I didn't realize that all of these like outlandish, futuristic, innovative ideas were just like other people in my circle, other people in my family that I would tell these outlandish ideas to, they just would not be able to understand them, because I feel like it was just so out there. But that really made me feel a little bit isolated. That made me feel alone. But I'm assuming this could be because of my Aries, that I still stood very strong in who I was and the direction, taking more of like leadership roles. But yeah, the spirituality helped me put words to those experiences. And so it then helped me on that side of things. And also moving forward, it helped me better identify and become aware of who was around me, what my environments look like. And when I changed certain things, how my life then changed afterwards. So coming into that conversation about like our authenticity and being who we really are, spirituality helped me come into who I am, and I'm still on that journey, but I don't think I would have been able to process a lot of those experiences without it. Tarot was really helpful for me. I would even just listen to them on YouTube, like the readings on YouTube, and they were so validating for me. And it was the first time that I really didn't feel so alone. And then I just started attracting people who were similar to me or had similar values and beliefs. And then, you know, I feel so much more fulfilled now, and I have a greater sense of purpose. And so they definitely go hand in hand now. But
hence how we are all here together.
Exactly.
We had talked about professional aspect of your lives. I just want to go there because I think that's important. I just feel that there's probably a lot of people that may be open to who they are with their friends and their family, and maybe not so professionally. So how did that unfold for you guys? Because I know, Sam, you said that it was uncomfortable because your ex-partner was closeted, so you had concealed your identity to a lot of your professional networks. So what did that look like for the both of you? Sam, if you want to start.
It was very uncomfortable to say the least.
I would imagine.
Very, very uncomfortable. And that was a 4-year relationship. And so I had I basically came out to my family, or at least my closer family, close friends, and even a few close colleagues, but it was very select within the workplace. But other than that, it was almost like I got shoved back in because going back to that conversation of safety, I did not want to unintentionally out her to her family, to anyone who could potentially be eyes that then relay it to the family because she was living in the same household. And so a lot of that safety came up, but it was also in protection of someone else. But because of that, when we were talking about safety earlier, this is where all the emotional part comes in, the emotional mental part,
Yeah.
because there's another layer where you're now trying to remember who knows what, and like it just is a mess. And so you don't always realize it until you're like in the thick of it or you come out of it, how much weight that is to carry, how much that it's just in the background every single moment of your life. And yeah, it's just very heavy. It's heavy. And I'm the type of person who really highly values authenticity and integrity. And I couldn't do that for me. So I just felt like I was having to lie to a lot of people. And it felt like if somebody just assumed I had a boyfriend, I had to just kind of go along with it. And so
Yeah.
then when I was out of that relationship and able to be myself, there's still a lot of people I have not had the conversation with because it's hard to just be like, hey, guess what? Like I was,
They're gonna know now.
with that whole time, but I just went along with it, like surprise. So a lot of how I've actually notified my networks, for lack of a better way to say it, is just being more out and open about it on my social media, on my Facebook, in my endeavors and all of that, and just not being afraid to be myself now. And they can just like quietly leave if they want to, but we don't have to have that face-to-face interaction about it.
And that's only, I think, a projection of their own selves, right? If they choose to
Mhm.
leave, then that's just,
Right.
their shortcomings and what they still need to work on within themselves. Sharmaine, professionally?
Yeah. Well, like I was really thinking back on this because I worked in healthcare for many, 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 many years. And so I kind of kept my professional life and personal life very separate. And so not a lot of people were like asking me about like my personal life. And it could have just been maybe I was a little bit too standoffish. Honestly, I don't know. But it never really kind of came up. Eventually when it did, it had to do with patient care and just like really advocating for like whether they were LGBT patients or just yeah, anything as far as like gender affirming care. It really kind of came up in terms of patient care and really making sure that we are just showing up for our patients wholeheartedly, and not letting our own internal biases or whatever the case may be show up in how we provide services for them. And so I don't know, it kind of just gradually came out. Just me kind of talking about my own, personal life and like going to queer shows or just anything like that. So it kind of slowly trickled out, but it wasn't, it wasn't kind of a big deal for me, I should say. And I think that's just me building trust over time with the folks and my colleagues that I had around me. And so to where I felt safe enough that I know I would be kind of held with the same respect and regard as I was before I came out to them. So it was kind of a gradual process.
What I wanted to do was just to go through a couple of things that I'm feeling called to talk about, just in the sense of like just getting maybe some experience that you may have with it, maybe just in the sense of what you feel could be done in this area. Because I had said to both, excuse me, Sam and Sharmaine prior to us recording that I was shocked about how much work we still need to do in terms of equality here in North America. So I could just imagine the rest of the world. But we'll just speak to North America. you know, to Sharmaine's point, it being 2022, it's quite concerning. So we'll just start with the overturn of Roe versus Wade, and you know, when that initially happened this year, a lot of the dialogue turned to what is that going to mean for the LGBTQ community. Is there anything personally that you guys are feeling called to share, in the sense of, it's not even about specifically what that meant for women's rights per se and abortion, but just in terms of, you know, that dialogue about what that could mean for the LGBTQ rights in the future?
I think for myself, it is more of an allyship standpoint, because at least where I am now, I don't see myself as ever getting pregnant personally. If I ever choose to have a child, like, I know that I would want to adopt. And so for me, it really has been about allyship and informed voting, and trying to encourage people to vote and get some of these people in office that will help for our human rights overall. So, I mean, I definitely see all of these things as very interconnected, but a much larger issue. And so I think it's also just the way that I see things is very like macro perspective. And so for me, it's kind of like the gears turn as far as like, how could something like this happen? It's not going to be the only one. Like, there's going to be a lot more that happens of this, and we don't want to give it too much momentum. What can
Yes.
be done? Just in getting the right people in office, people who will fight for our rights and things of that nature.
And Sharmaine?
I 100% agree. So yeah, just community and allyship, and just understanding what we can do individually and collectively within our own communities, and making sure that we continue to speak out and continue to demonstrate in all the things, because you know, we can't be complacent. You know, complacency is what got us here. And just understanding that there are more things that unite us than separate us, and understanding that this isn't just a women's issue. It's not just, you know,
An American
it's
issue.
not just a singular, and
Yeah.
it's just not a singular issue. It's so much larger than that. And for all of us to continue to come together and continue to put in the work, and to build those connections, to make sure that, you know, our rights are protected. And so, yeah, just all the things Sam said. Ditto.
No, I love that. I love that. And thank you so much for that, lady. So you had mentioned the Trevor Project. I think it was Sam that mentioned the Trevor Project. So the next couple of stats are from the Trevor Project. So they estimate that more than 1.8 million LGBTQ plus youth ages 13 to 24 seriously consider suicide each year in the US. And listen to this stat. And at least one attempt suicide every 45 seconds. So just what's coming intuitively again, you know, what more can be done to change this, whether it's, I know Sam has talked about just being able to see themselves, you know, on TV and representation across the board and such. Like, what are other things that we can do as a society to really allow them the space to know that you know, isn't what they need to be able to be themselves, essentially. Sam, do you want to
Sharmaine,
start?
you're welcome to start if you'd like.
The first thing that's coming up is, oh God, that stat is really devastating. One, because so I'm just like, I'm feeling it really deep in my heart. And as someone who has struggled with their own mental health, and has had suicide ideation in the past, and has struggled with that, I think it is so important to find support. I know for me that was a big thing, and reaching out for help when I did need it. And I think for all of us as individuals is making sure that we are these safe spaces for people,
Yeah.
and making that very clear. and doing our best to actually embody the values that we each individually have, whatever those values may be. For me, it is love and freedom, and making sure that I walk and embody that with every interaction that I have with people, because at the end of the day, we do not know what people are carrying. And just, oh, yeah, just, I think it's important to uh, open up dialogue with folks, and just making it as safe and inviting as it can be, so people have a place to go to land, to know that you're a personal resource. And yeah, that's yeah, that's one piece.
Sam?
Um, I feel I have a lot of opinions around this topic, but I feel like some of the most actionable that I could think of is I was able to take a QPR training, which is on gatekeeping for suicide prevention. Even just learning about minor tweaks that we can make in our language, not using committed suicide as if it was some kind of crime that was committed, and saying and being more open about using what actually happened, like died by suicide. And even though this was not related to the community, I do have a family member and I know a handful, unfortunately, of people who have died by suicide. So this has affected me in a way that's not necessarily related to the community, but I think getting training, learning how to have the conversations. And one of the most important things I think I've learned over the last couple years is really meeting people where they're at. I'm a naturally optimistic person, and so I've had opportunities to reflect on how I might have um, reacted or, handled myself in a conversation. And it's not about trying to lift someone's spirit. It's about really just affirming where they're at, trying to be that person that they feel heard by. And like Sharmaine said, that's how you can create that safe space, not trying to change them, not trying to fix them, allowing them to be heard. And when it comes to the LGBT community, and especially with our youth, I have a lot of opinions on media. I feel like I love the representation and they should absolutely continue to represent these stories. However, I feel like the types of stories that they continue to put out there are still in one lane. There's an entire rainbow of different experiences, and we consistently just see gay or lesbian. We're getting out of it where the lesbian content is not just, dramatic, like horrible endings. Yeah, we're getting out of that. But when it comes to the trans community, for example, it's still primarily trans women or trans feminine representation. We don't get to see a lot of trans masculine or trans men in the media. And a lot of the representation we see, everybody is already fully transitioned. So we're not even getting the stories of what the journey looks like, or those who don't want to go through a full hormone replacement or any of the types of surgeries, and that it's just as valid of an experience. So I feel like that is a part of it. Our youth feel like I have to do this in order to be this, like I have to do this. And I feel like that's part of the problem, is we just need more diverse voices that are sharing the stories so that more people are represented, not just tiny fragments of the communities.
I love that. I was gonna actually bring that up later. We had at our TIFF movie festival, the Toronto International Film Festival is what I'm trying to say. In September, they premiered Bros. I don't know if you've seen it. I've seen it. But I thought, obviously I saw it with straight eyes, so I can't interpret it the same way somebody from the community would. I thought it was funny, and I thought, it was a representation that I'm sure a lot of people would be able to identify with. But I thought it was super powerful that, they were releasing and openly casted as well. I think the entire cast was from the community as well. So I thought that was, little step forward. About 40% of homeless youth in America identifies LGBTQ and have ended up on the streets because they're rejected by their family members. So I think it was Sam that said, and this is for anybody really, that blood doesn't make you family, right? So is there anything that's coming up in terms of speaking to that? I think we talked a lot about community and the importance of community and having resources that probably attain to this as well.
Sharmaine, did you want to say?
Go ahead, Sam.
Okay. I feel like this will be short. I feel like for myself, again, I see these as huge issues that heavily impact our communities, maybe a higher percentage, but these are overall issues just in general for everyone. Homelessness, not having enough, inflation. But yes, when it comes to the LGBT community, a lot of times, yes, being rejected by family is a huge factor in that, not just means. And I have seen more organizations pop up who support LGBT youth or just homelessness for youth. I know they have certain programs now where they'll provide them housing for a certain amount of time, but then also help them with job skills. That's more of like the practical side. But again, I cannot stress enough kind of trying to seek out community, because I know there are so many people who want to help and give back, and having that network, I guarantee there are people out there who would be willing to offer resources and even a home for youth who are at risk. But it really, unfortunately, it also does kind of take either allyship by certain teachers or people in the adults in the network of the youth, as well as if they can find community through like social media and things like that to try to find support. It's out there, but it does take a little bit of effort to get it.
Sharmaine?
Yeah. One thing that like just came to mind was just recognizing our own humanity in each other. And homelessness is a major issue, and it does disproportionately affect our LGBT youth quite exorbitantly. But it's one of those things where, where is the humaneness in all of this? Where do we connect with that? How is it that we hear these numbers, we hear these statistics, and, we're just like, oh, well, we kind of shrug it off. But it's like, I know that there's a lot of programs that are available. And I know specifically in Portland, we have a high number of houseless folks out here. And there are quite a number of resources. And I know that they are overburdened at this point. And I just think that even us as individuals, like we all can do more in our own kind of our own individual actions, and just recognizing our own humanity in each other. And so, there's so much.
And I love that point that you both make, because I think as human beings, regardless, of anything, we really underestimate how much light we bring and how much power we have in ourselves, regardless of what we do and what our status quo is and such. And in terms of just changing people's lives day to day, simply by just asking people how they're feeling, or asking people how we can be of assistance to them, or whatever that looks like. So I love that you both made both those points. There's one more point I want to talk about, because this was pretty astonishing to me. And I know you guys have midterms coming up, so this is probably a good time to talk about voting again. I'm not sure we'll get this episode out before that comes around, but unequal health care in 37 states, insurance companies can discriminate based on sexual and gender identity. And I thought that was super disturbing. Again, we are in 2022. So to read that just doesn't feel right. Is there anything that, I know, Sharmaine, you come from healthcare, so I'm sure you are personally affected by that, just in terms of being in that industry?
Yeah, so that's quite astonishing. And I know, I can only speak for Portland. I live in Portland, Oregon, and one of the programs that they have up here is called the Gender Pathways Clinic. So it's reaffirming healthcare for folks that are either looking to transition or thinking about transitioning, or just having culturally competent medical providers that are familiar with specific issues related to the LGBTQ plus community. And again, going in and having access to this care and having qualified staff that understand, you know, issues pertaining to me as a lesbian woman, and not having this really awkward interaction of, for instance, are you sexually active? And then like, saying yes, and it's like, okay, you know, well, are you pregnant? I'm a lesbian, you know, and having this really awkward interaction, but just having, you know, really informed medical staff and affirming care, not only as just like a woman, but as a lesbian woman, you know? So, yeah. So what was your question? I feel like I always like rest on the question, just like go off on a random
because we're so passionate, Sharmaine.
And I can understand why that question would have been more passionate for you, because that's your background. But just, you know, I guess the short answer to that is vote and be knowledgeable. I'm not American, I'm Canadian, but same true for us, you know, in the sense of be knowledgeable about who you're voting into office, what their beliefs are, what their policies are and such. Sam, is there anything that you want to?
I think it's also one of those things where I know Sharmaine and I generally live in more progressive areas, and so this isn't something that's as close to home for us personally, because I know we're in states that are generally more open, and just because one clinic might not be welcoming, you're probably able to find another one that is. So one of the ways that I've been trying to do my part to make a difference, aside from encouraging voting and informed voting, is with organizations who are fighting for these rights and for changing what's in our laws and all of that. And so I think that's also how I've stayed informed more on how people are being affected at large, especially in those states where they're really trying to just strip you of your rights if you're not, you know, straight and cis. And just in case, because I know I've used this a few times, but I haven't clarified cis versus trans. So cis would be I was born assigned as a female, and I identify as a female. And if you are assigned a male at birth and you identify as a male, that's cis.
Okay.
So when you say gendered.
Okay, so but when you say straight.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Okay.
I've been working on changing my language there too. It's a conscious change that I've made. Not saying straight, because to differentiate between LGBT community and not, because trans people can be straight. And so you can be a trans male and be in relationships with cis females or trans females. So you can be straight and still be in the LGBT community. So I've been changing my language to cis het, which is cis heterosexual.
I was just testing you, see if you knew that.
Yes, because I know I didn't clarify that earlier, and I'm like, oh, I'm using that a lot, but a lot of people might not know what that is.
It's okay, but this is all part of educating ourselves, so then, you know, when we meet somebody that is in that period of their lives, you'd be like, oh, I listened to Laura Sampson podcast, I know what that means.
Yeah, I mean, in short, I've just stayed up to date more with what's going on in the states that are not as open and progressive, through organizations and following and supporting organizations and things of that nature.
Perfect. So I wanted to do now, you know, as we're getting close to an end, such an amazing conversation, by the way, guys, ladies, such an important conversation, I think, that needs to be had. And I know will inspire a lot of people, and the people that are not being called to it, well, that's fine too, as well. I just wanted Sam and Sharmaine both separately, and then I know you guys have an incredible program together. So if you just want to just talk a little bit more about what you do more specifically, incredible modalities, and then what you do together and how, of course, people can reach you. I always ask at the end of each episode where people can reach you. Of course, we'll put you in the show notes, but even intuitively, if there's anything that you're being called to share that maybe, we didn't talk about that you want to talk about, I'll give you the floor to you both now.
So I am a certified tarot advisor. My main focus is on transformation and healing. I've just found that that's one area of tarot that I see it as a very useful tool for helping people uncover their subconscious, and especially because I identify in the LGBT community, I love also saying that I'm an inclusive reader. So I try not to gender anything when I'm doing my readings. And I'll tend to clarify, oh, this says a queen, but you don't have to be feminine or a woman and things like that. And so that is really important to me, to provide inclusive readings and to ask people their pronouns if they choose to share them when I'm doing the readings. But yeah, I feel like I've just kind of found this, like you said, a little niche of my gifts. I want to be able to share them in a way that helps promote healing and helps get people to where they want to be and feel validated and confirmed in whatever inner knowledge they already have. They just sometimes need somebody to just confirm it for them, and I feel like I've been able to do that for a lot of people. But yeah, so I don't know how much else I can say about it, but that is primarily who I love working with, is just those who really want to get to the next level, but they feel something is kind of blocking them. So,
Sharmaine, do you want to share what you do? And then maybe you guys could just chime in together and share more about what you do together.
Yeah. Okay. So I am a certified spiritual life coach, and I'm also a certified meditation and mindfulness teacher. So for me, I offer one-to-one coaching. I have a couple different packages available on my website. I have a 4-week Kickstarter coaching package for those that aren't sure about coaching, but maybe want to get their feet wet. And
I love that.
I'm not quite sure, so I have a little 4-week there, and then I have a 12-week program to dive a bit deeper into your own blocks and wanting to explore your own spirituality, your own gifts. That's one that I have there. I have meditation. I hope to be starting up my weekly meditation groups again, probably towards December, definitely at the beginning of next year. And Sam and I have our tarot coaching package together. So it's a beautiful fusion of Sam, who reads her tarot, and then me for coaching. One of the things that I'll speak for me, that we were really excited about. I follow different tarot readers online, and one of the things that I always felt like, oh man, I'm getting this wonderful reading, but how do I fully bring into focus some of the advice or some of the things that I'm called to work on? And that's where the coaching part of our program comes into play, where you get that accountability, that guide, that to kind of walk with you to bring forth all of those beautiful juicy nuggets that come through in the tarot reading. So
and we kind of just realized that because tarot helps dig into that subconscious, a lot of times a traditional intake form, you're kind of relying on the client to come up with the answers before you start, to tell you what they want to work on. But tarot kind of helps them uncover what, they deep down want to work on. And so we kind of just found that this relationship works really well when combined with each other to enhance both sides of it. You get your tarot reading to help help you dig deeper. And then you get that accountability. And if you are into coaching itself, you then get that extra added help from the tarot. So we really put a lot of intention in how we designed it, and we put a lot of thought into that. And we've had some great feedback from those who have gone through our program, and they've seen the shifts happen. And so we're just really excited to kind of offer this little partnership to the world.
I love it. It's brilliant. And I could attest, just, as a Reiki practitioner who's also a coach, I feel like I'm coaching like 90% of the actual session, because, excuse me, I always tell my clients the real work starts after you leave the bed, not, you know what I mean? So I'm sure it's the same way when you're doing a reading, right? So it's just like, and then handing them to do the rest of the portion of the work with Sharmaine. So it's brilliant. I love it. I'll start with Sam. Is there anything intuitively that you're being called to share? And then when you could just share also where people could find you.
Yeah, I feel a lot of what I'm doing is on my website. I have my diversity, equity, inclusion portion of it. I have my tarot and the tarot coaching, also voter education stuff going on. All of that's going to be on my website. As far as what I feel called to share is just allyship for humans, allyship for community, and not just giving yourself an ally sticker just because, you don't hate other people. That doesn't necessarily qualify you as an ally. Ally really does take action behind it, just as what you're doing, Laura, here is allowing us to share our stories. That is allyship. So the more we can implement more of that in our lives and learn from others, I feel like we'll all be doing our part to create a better world.
I love that. So everyone could be an ally.
Oh, anybody.
I'm gonna get a little ally badge today. Sharmaine.
I love that. I love that. So yeah, my website as well. So if you are interested in learning more about what I do, or wanting to just schedule a complimentary discovery call, you can do that on my website, SharmaineDenise.com. I'm also on social media, so you can connect with me mostly on Instagram. So that's a beautiful little nugget. I am almost certified to be a Moonologer with.
What exactly is that? Is it like cycles? I'm going to assume.
Yeah, it's following the lunar cycle. So really using the lunar cycle and the moon's energy to help in your own manifestation and your own growth. So using that 28-day cycle in your own personal life goals, manifestation work, anything like that. So very excited to start offering
I love that
as well as the coaching. So yeah.
Is there any intuitively you're being called to share before we come to an end? I know we've covered a lot.
Honey. I know we did. No, just keep showing up. Keep showing up. Like, we are all here walking this planet in this particular timeline. We are all called to be here, and to just understand that we all have our own unique light, our own unique gifts. So just continue to walk in that, and pairing that with action and allyship, right?
Allyship. That's the word of the day.
Yes.
Light and allyship.
Yes, and just continue to do the best that you can. So yeah.
Thank you so much, ladies. This is such an incredible conversation, and we appreciate your light